Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Okay, guys, thank you for the recommendation. History Matters, I love them. 1.4 million. They deserve it. Preemptive like. Why are so many European royal families German? I don't know. Is it something to do with the Holy Roman Empire and I don't know. Let's do it.
In 1914, all of these countries in Europe...
Did I say that my name's Connor? Hello, where are my manners? Original link to the video, top of the description, below that, link to the Discord. Click on it, send you right over there. Would love to have you.
were ruled by... In 1914, all of these countries in Europe were ruled by monarchs. And these were ruled by monarchs of a German royal family. Quite a lot. And given that some of these rulers could trace their houses back 1,000 years...
Does it have to do with Habsburg? I don't know. Okay, sorry.
...family. Quite a lot. And given that some of these rulers could trace their houses back 1,000 years and others mere decades, why were so many of them German? So a lot of this can be explained by one thing: the late unification of Germany. At the turn of the 18th century, the German-speaking parts of Europe weren't unified like the French, English or Spanish-speaking parts. It was divided into numerous smaller states, many of which had their own monarchies. And these monarchs would marry off their kids to whoever would have them. A Prussian princess married the Prince of Orange, a Brunswicker duchess married the King of Denmark, a Badener duchess married the King of Sweden, and one from Mecklenburg married the King of the United Kingdom. Given that all of these monarchies only really paid lip service to their overlords, the Holy Roman Emperor Kingdom. Given that all of these monarchies only really paid lip service to their overlords, the Holy Roman Emperors, there wasn't much risk in marrying them. Whereas marrying someone in the French royal family could cause issues with inheritance, which France, unlike the small German states, could press.
Interesting.
And, over time, childless or female heirs would mean a near relative would succeed the throne, and they would be a member of their father's... Childless or female heirs would mean a near relative would succeed the throne, and they would be a member of their father's, often German house. But what about countries individually? Well, the United Kingdom's monarchy had previously been Anglo-Saxon, French, Welsh and Scottish. After a flirt with Catholicism, English nobles called upon William of Orange to seize the throne from James II. He did, and Catholics were then banned from becoming ruler.
Act of settlement. Catholics are gross and can't be king. Also, if you marry one, you can't be king either. Signed, Willem and Mary.
William also didn't have any children, and so the throne went to his sister-in-law, Anne. She continued the streak of not having an heir and died childless, and so the throne passed to her cousin's son, George of Hanover, her closest Protestant relative.
So it's just not by chance. It's just by the fact that they weren't in a coherent big state like France or something, or Spain, and so it was safer to marry off to them, so that and then just by that fact that they're convenient in that aspect and that they're part of the, just by sheer numbers, means that when someone in another country dies, the royal, then it's likely that there's a German that will take up the position.
Relative, thereby beginning the Hanoverian dynasty, which would be succeeded by the Saxe-Coburg and Gotha dynasty, which would soon after change its name to Windsor when all things German suddenly became less popular. In Denmark, throughout most of its history, its monarchy was an elective one. But when King Christopher III made the mistake of dying without an heir, the nobles had to pick somebody new. As such, they chose Christian, who was the son of the Duke of Schleswig, a region with a sizable German-speaking...
So many die without... Okay, so you can't just have as many wives as you want. They have to be your wife, and then they won't be a bastard, so that they can take the throne. And so that's one big thing that's going to make it difficult to have an heir, because you'd think just get as many women pregnant as you can so that a boy can be born, and then there's your successor. But you can't do that. You have to stick to one. And that was the whole problem with Henry VIII. I guess Henry VIII is a great example of someone who tried and tried and tried and tried, even going to the point of like getting in a fight with the Pope or whatever. And okay, so Henry VIII is a great example to of just how difficult it could be to get an heir. Okay.
As such, they chose Christian, who was the son of the Duke of Schleswig, a region with a sizable German-speaking minority which Denmark had a close relationship with and one it wanted to keep. This began the House of Oldenburg, which still reigns to this day and also in Norway, although Norway chose a Danish prince for their throne when it split from Sweden in 1905. The German and Austrian imperial families both have their origins in the Holy Roman Empire. The Hohenzollerns were from Zollern here, and the Habsburgs were unsurprisingly from Habsburg here in what's now Switzerland. Both slowly over the centuries increased their holdings and titles from counts to dukes to archdukes and kings before emperors. There wasn't a lot of opportunity for outside royal houses to advance in the Holy Roman Empire, and so these families just stayed German. The last major power which had a German royal family was Russia. Peter the Great was a Romanov, as was his daughter Empress Elizabeth I. She died childless and the throne passed to her nephew Peter III. Peter's father was the Duke of Holstein, and thus he was a part of that house. Now, Peter and his...
So, essentially, like I said before, because of this whole mess, it meant it so that the risk of really bad consequences when it comes to big rivals like France taking the throne, it was safer to get someone from one of these things to marry your daughter or son, prince or princess, off to. And because of this fact that so many chose the safe route, meant that when a lot of places died childless, then it would go off to them. Am I following here?
His father was the just. She died childless and the throne passed to her nephew Peter III. Peter's father was the Duke of Holstein, and thus he was a part of that house. Now, Peter and his wife Catherine kept the name Romanov to tie themselves to their empire and its people, and that royal family stayed in power until, a thing happened. So what about all of these smaller nations? Well, these nations all came into existence in the 19th century with the oversight of the great powers, who, as a result, got to choose who would be king. The first was Greece. Britain, France, and Russia.
Also German. Wasn't Prince Philip, rest in peace, right? I don't know the guy or whatever, but obviously, wasn't he a Greek of Greek royalty, and he had German background?
Russia all had a stake in the new country, and thus they all wanted an ally on the throne. As such, after their first choice said no, they picked Prince Otto of Bavaria, who wasn't aligned with any of them. Next was Belgium, which, as a buffer state between Prussia and France, couldn't be aligned with either. As such, the British chose Leopold of Saxe-Coburg.
So it's just, I don't want them, and just pick it from... So, essentially...
State between Prussia and France couldn't be...
Essentially, the Holy Roman Empire, or the German states, were just like a grab bag of royal... marriages.
Either.
I'm repeating myself.
As such, the British chose Leopold of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, husband of the king's niece, to keep the two close to ensure Belgium's independence. Romania had a German monarch after its first ruler, a native Romanian, became somewhat despotic and was overthrown in a coup. The new country had only recently broken away from the Ottoman Empire, and so to maintain its independence, its nobles picked a prince from the Prussian Hohenzollern royal family. This essentially guaranteed their independence from Russia, the Ottomans, and the Austrians next door. And for Bulgaria, the reasons were similar. At first, it was ruled by the nephew of the Russian emperor, but he got himself overthrown after being terrible. He was replaced by an Austrian-backed candidate, which, unlike Romania, was fine because Austria-Hungary wasn't on the border with them. And after this, these royal families remained in place until either today or their eventual ousting in the 20th century. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and a special thanks to my patrons, James...
You used to say thank you for watching. Thank you for making.
Annette, Kelly Moneymaker, Sky Chappelle, Corsho Wolf.
Awesome video from History Matters once again. I have reacted to so many. This is like the channel that, like this and like Salmonella. I haven't reacted to a Salmonella video in a long time. There are just so many of them, and they're good at just giving you some insight, and they're not very long, which some can see as a bad thing. But whenever anyone does, I'm like, well, that's not exactly what they're for. And they do a great job at getting you into a subject, is my opinion. Awesome video. I hope you're all doing well. Hope you learned something or can teach me something in the comments. See you guys next time. Bye.